Thank you, Kaylee. We'll catch up with the weather a little bit later on. Mary O'Connell, my distinct pleasure to speak to you 2 days in a row.
What's on your... It's truly a privilege and an honor.
I knew you were excited about it as well. So let's talk about spot rate or spot and contract freight and what's going on there, the mix thereof, and the rates. Carriers are seeming to be gobbling up as much freight as they can, and none of it's spilling out into the spot market right now. What's going on, Mary?
I mean, we kind of see it in all of the carrier updates and all of the sonar data that we have is that carriers are not really interested in the spot market right now, which I can't blame them. Spot market rates are leaving a little something to be desired, especially for what we've seen over the last few years when those spot rates were kind of like striking gold. So I think that carriers are really just looking for that steady, consistent freight that has a set price that they know that they can make X amount of money on. We all love consistency. We all like knowing where our next check's coming from. So I think that is what's really driving a lot of those carriers to that contract freight opportunity, but there's still plenty of spot market freight to go around. It's just not as lucrative as it was before. So we're seeing higher contracted rates. We're seeing higher contract tender acceptance rates. I mean, we see it now with the National Outbound Tender Rejection Index. It's lower than I think I've seen it ever, but I mean, I've only seen it the highest. I came in at its peak of like 19 to 20 and something.
Mary, that's a really interesting point about now these contract rates going up. How does that affect the shipper side of things right now? Shippers happy, not happy? What's going on?
I'm pretty sure that this is finally the break that shippers are wanting to see. Because I mean, earlier in the summer when things were kind of when spot rates had come down and everyone was pushing more towards the contract side, shippers weren't really seeing that level of cost savings yet because fuel was still so high. So the lower reduction in rates were offset by the high fuel charges. So now fuel has come down, rates have still come down. So shippers are now kind of taking advantage of these lower rates and maybe rebidding some freight and, reshoring up some of those negotiated contracts to make sure that they're not overpaying and they're able to save those cost savings that they definitely weren't getting last year or earlier this year. They're really just leaning on those cost savings to kick them into the last quarter of the year.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic because now you're starting to see, like you mentioned, we saw fuel starting to come down, and it came down for a while, and now it's back on that uptick as Kingston was warning us, and some others were saying, hey, just watch out. This is not a long-lived type of thing. It's starting to come back up there. It's that disparity really, because this is like a circular thing, and I was just talking to somebody about something else that was circular logic, but it really is, right? The carriers are not going out to the spot market because spot market's down, and the shippers aren't just jumping out of their routing guides because the contract rates are starting to come down a little bit as well, and so they're not using that spot market as a discount tool, right? What does this really start to mean for what is now traditionally the start of bid season going into the end of this? Because usually whatever happens in the fourth quarter makes contracts go up or go down. It doesn't matter about the spring or the summer, any of that stuff. It is, what have you done for me lately? Is it tight capacity, therefore rates go up? Is it loose capacity, it goes down? Where are we at right now?
I think we're kind of in, because everyone's just starting to send out those peak season pricing bids. Everyone's just starting to work on that because it's August, just going into September. So those will probably get locked in the next few weeks. So that way come October, November, December, everyone's ready to roll. But I would be surprised if contract rates increase at all. I mean, everyone's pretty firmly in the camp of let's hold on to those contract rates. Let's maybe rebid some opportunities that we might have done earlier to get lower rates. This is definitely one of those times where if you are a shipper and you feel like you're paying too much for freight, you probably are. So I do not see, I think this year's peak season, I'm going to make a long call shot. I do think that this year's peak season is not going to be anything like we've seen for the past 2-ish, 3-ish years. I think it's going to be much more similar to like a 2018 peak season where it might be a little slower. We're not going to have those giant swings upward in volume. Nobody's certainly going to need to charter a airplane to get their product on the shelves like we saw last year. I think it's going to be much more tame, much more, there's still going to be volumes. I mean, it's peak season, but I don't think it's going to be quite the levels that we've seen hit recently. I think it's just going to be more of like a little swing instead of like a giant roller coaster swing up.
Mary, for the broker who has maybe been living their lives with the spot market the last 2 years or so, and now they're having to go, well, shoot, I got to do some work to get this going. Do you have any pro tips on them to kind of take this market swing and ride it still pretty decently if they've just been living their life by the spot?
If you've been living your life by the spot, well, first of all, my number one life lesson to you is make sure that you have some contract freight in there as well. I mean, you can definitely have a heavy split of like you're more focused on spot, but you should always have that contract freight, even if it's with a small customer, a small carrier. You just need something that's consistent because you know that it's always going to be there. So if you are, living that 70-20 or 70-30 split where you suddenly now have 70% spot market and those commission checks are looking a little sad. Talk to some of those customers that give you those spot opportunities. See if there's a way that when their RFP comes out, you can get on a couple, you can bid on it. You can get a chance to win a couple lanes that you will run consistently. Turn some of those spot market opportunities maybe into something more regular and say like, hey, if you always have a truck a week coming out of Atlanta, well, can I have that? Can that just be my thing? And yeah, it's still technically spot, but then you can turn around and get one carrier that you have locked in to consistently do it. And it's not a lot, but by being consistent on that lane and being consistent and, just always being around, then if you don't mess it up too often, then you are more likely to get some more freight. And it's really just about being creative. If you can't go out and you don't have to go land a giant multi-million-dollar contract freight account. You don't have to do that. Just take some of the opportunities you have now, double check on them. I mean, you're already in the door, which is the hardest part. So just see what other opportunities might be there. See if there's anything you can convert to just a more regular basis. And also never have a full spot market mix. Always have a healthy mix of both.
Good points there, Mary. And first thing before we let you go, gotta say congratulations on your 1-year anniversary here with us at FreightWaves. That is today. So it's been a year of getting great insights from Mary O'Connell, and we love having you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very happy.
Congratulations.
Here. It's been quite a year full of a lot of memes and a lot of witty comments.
I love it. And the second question, last question for you, Mary. How excited are you for October 21st?
Okay, so I am very excited. For those who might not know, previously I had a giant Taylor Swift Reputation poster behind me, but when we moved, I haven't hung it up yet. It's on my list. Taylor Swift is coming out with an album on October 21st, which actually is my birthday. So she gave me the best birthday present ever.
That's absolutely incredible, and we love to see it. Mary, thank you for joining us this morning. Congrats one more time on your 1 year, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.